Hi, everybody. Great to be at this event where people are brainstorming stuff. These jamming sessions are really invaluable rather than working in your own bubbles. So, what I'm going to do today is basically share some of the user stories from the field about how people are using technology and some of the frustrations around it, right? So, just as a bit of a background, I'm from Akvo. It's a weird name. It means water in Esperanto, and it's because we started from the water sector. So, what I want to emphasize now today is what we see increasingly is people are moving to digital, but the mindset hasn't really changed. It's just translating what is in paper to digital, which is not good enough, right? Because it can offer so much more. So, as a bit of a background, we are a non-profit organization, and what we do is make open source hardware, software, internet tools. We only make generic tools, so that's why we work in multiple sectors like renewable energy, disaster management, health, sanitation, wash, education, you name it. We are a team of about 80 odd people based on most of the continents. In this region, we have offices in Singapore, Bali, Hanoi, and in India, we are in Delhi and Bangalore. We work with about 300 odd organizations, but yeah, these are some of the more recognizable names around here. With UNDP, most of our collaboration is around in Pacific and around climate change. So we are working on our national baseline, especially around wash impact of climate change in the Solomon Islands, then impact on land use in Nauru. They call it the Reach to Reef program, and we also did a prototype with UN Pulse Lab called DIY SAM on this tool. It was also a climate change program. So today, instead of talking about specifically tools, I would just want to talk about concepts because tools are secondary, right? It is the concept of doing things that is more important. It is the process that is more important rather than just the tools. So what we want to emphasize is on the three phases that the data generally goes through. You capture the data, you understand the data, and the part that is really missing is sharing of the data. Right? There's a lot of knowledge generated in this sector, but they're all in bubbles. People are not sharing enough of their learnings with other organizations. Not even sharing the data well, actually. So there are various tools that support these processes, but I'm not going to emphasize too much on it, but look at how people are using these tools. These are just the means to an end, and how people are using tools to actually what was not possible before. Right. So one of the data collection tools that we have is called Akvo Flow. It's a mobile-based data collection tool, collects all sorts of data, captures, monitors, and coordinates, collects georeference data. It's been used in about 40 countries across the world. Till date, we have done about 4 million field surveys using it. Some of the bigger projects are in Indonesia, in East Africa, and also in Vietnam. So this tool, yeah, is a multilingual tool integratable with other systems, and yeah, works offline, collects georeference data and stuff like that. But what is also important, as in moving to the next step, is people generally do their baseline output outcome surveys, stuff like that, right? But what is also very, very important is because nothing in life is constant, to monitor stuff properly, right? Right now, monitoring generally happens is you take a sample, you understand that sample, again, 1 year later, take another sample, try to compare data. Right? But in some cases, like say child nutrition projects or projects where you're actually working with a dedicated set of people, it's important that you keep going back to the same person again and again, same household again and again. And also do it irrespective of the field partners, right? So you're independently able to go to those entities, the household or water point or whatever, and keep collecting data around them, basically building up your file around them, right? And this should be able to be able to do it independently, like you just need your phone, and once the data is there, it syncs to your phone, and you're independently able to go and monitor and inspect those things. One of the interesting ways one of our partners is using that data is to find out, this project is in Cambodia, and I was there yesterday actually. What they're trying to do is they're promoting home gardens for climate change resilience and food security. So what they found out is they did a survey of the villages and what they're growing in their home gardens, and then they did a survey of the seed companies, the shops selling the seeds, right? And as you can see, if once they did monitoring every 3 months, they found out that there are major gaps around here. So these villages on the top left, they are growing something, but the shops are not storing those seeds. You see those red parts? Right? So now they can work with the villages and they can work with the seed companies to ensure that there is availability of seeds. And this is only possible if you monitor stuff, right? Then one of the next things that we're doing is we all collect GPS points, but in a lot of cases, just a single point is not enough. Especially projects around agriculture, around disaster management, you would need to map out an area rather than just a plot. So one of our projects in Sumatra around sustainable palm oil, what we're doing is trying to promote sustainable palm oil. With palm oil, you map out the field so you know how much palm trees they have, so how much palm oil they can produce. So if he produces more of the palm oil, that means he is basically chopping down the forest around it, right? So you use some drone imagery, you map out the shapes, and then you ensure that some palm oil that is being produced is sustainable. One of the other uses people did was in Nepal around after the earthquake struck, where they went around communities, mapped out the communities rather than with just one GPS point, but the whole community area, and then quickly generated a map showing what type of damage different communities suffered, right? The other thing that people are also using it is for making decision-making tools. Right now what happens is survey collection is a very one-way process. You ask questions, you get responses, you take those responses somewhere, you analyze them. But a lot of these can actually be done in the field. So say you are doing this is an example of a Washington school survey, where you actually collect your data and then give the school a feedback based on a scoring mechanism about what is their status, right? Similarly, for a child nutrition program, you don't want to collect the data about the child, take it to your office, analyze it, and come back 6 months later when the child has already grown, right? You would want to assess the status of the child malnourishment then and there, and then provide counseling then and there, right? You don't want to close that circle as fast as possible. Then what we also realized is people are collecting baseline data and collecting surveys, but there's a lot more a smartphone can do. Right? So what we're doing now is, along with this data collection platform, we are adding sensors and field testing kits to it, so that along with your survey, you can test for water, you can test for soil, and stuff like that, right? Using the same services. It just becomes an additional question in your survey, and then you test stuff around them. We have added various kinds of sensors to the system. So some of the sensors are for fluoride, which is a reagent-based testing mechanism, happens with your survey. Then you test with your probes, which connects to your phone, and then also doing automated strip test. So the strip test we mostly do for water and soil. The sensors are for soil moisture, soil conductivity, measuring TDS, like we're using it in Bangladesh with Deltares to measure the TDS in Meghna River, right? Constantly monitoring them to see if there's an influx of TDS in there. With fluoride, we are trying it out in Jhabua in MP and in East Africa. So these are some of the examples of how we are using it. That's doing NPK testing for soil using mobile phones in Indonesia. This is measuring fluorides in Jharkhand. And all this becomes, so we don't expect anybody to actually learn how to do it. So the processes has to be simple enough that you don't need to be a technician to actually do it, right? The UI has to be simple enough, the steps to do it has to be simple enough that anybody and everybody can do it. Then what we're also doing is, along with this project data collection, what also happens is getting human stories, right? You get your quantitative data, but it is also very important to get those qualitative data, those stories from the field. And what a lot of our partners do is use this tool. So, I mean, Facebook can do it, but if you want to properly have it in one place, sequence it and actually to understand it, these kind of tools becomes very useful, where you actually collect data, collect human stories from the field, right? Anybody sends a photograph, a video, some text around it, and then you can stick it on your website, becomes a real, rather than being like a digital version of a brochure, your website, it becomes a much more living document in there. Here you can also do your project management with it. You can create, say, something like this, right? So this is the WASH Alliance project. It's being run in 10 countries right now. It's funded by the, it's been funded by the Dutch government, and they use completely paperless reporting. They don't write a single paper report now, right? All the reporting is done using this, and yeah, it's much faster to see how the project is going, and all of this is ERT compliant, International Aid Transparency Initiative. So it becomes much more standardized, much more shareable. Then to come into the understand part of this, from one single set of data, there are different views that are required. The indicators that are important for me from the same data set is not as important to you. You want to see something else, right? So it's important to be able to provide views to that same data, different views to the same data. So that's why you would create automated dashboards from your data. So one dashboard for me, one dashboard for somebody else. He needs to look at something else. I need to look at something else, but from the same data set, right? So you get your own dashboards, which are very specific to what you want to look at. And then finally to the sharing of data, right? Sharing of data is the most powerful thing. Once you capture the data, you also understand the data, it's very useful for your project, fine, but then it also needs to go back from where it came from. So this is the fluoride mapping that we did in Jharkhand. And then we are also building this online library kind of thing called Aquapedia, which has portals around wash, sanitation, say wash technology. If you have like if you want to use a 20-meter depth water pump, what kind of water pump you should be using, where it is being used, what are the problems around using it. Similarly around sanitation, finance, basically all kind of learning. Sustainable palm oil, good practices, all goes in here, and it's openly available to everybody to access, learn from it, learn from each other.